How many of you have a situation that involves employees, like you have them, and everything is going just fine? You have absolutely no concern about whether or not the place is going to open today. You left your cell phone in your hotel room because you have no need of anyone giving you a call about anything from the office, from the store, whatever it may be. And know that when you get back, your desk will be completely clean because people have said, not only did we get everything done, but we saw that you had some stuff left on your desk that needed to be done, so we got it done for you. How many of you are fitting into that category today? Okay, well, just one, because that's the person I was going to say you might as well just go on out and have a cup of coffee. Or, perhaps even better yet, I could sit down and listen, and you could do this for me, and I can learn something from you. All right. So that's not the case. How many people do I have with me who, this is your first session with me? Do I have some new bodies? Okay. Let me explain to you who I am, where I came from. I am a retailer. I come originally from Arkansas. I've lived here in Florida for 30 years. I'm just a retailer who got off on a side tangent of studying the business a whole lot, and somehow or another found a way to write a few books on the topic. But I am fascinated about the aspect of how a business runs. One of my customers drew this for me when I finally sold the store. He told me he was going to miss me, but his comment to me was he thought maybe this was what I had finally done in life. I'm just learning to speak. Now I'm going to go out and be a speaker. He referred to it as I was joining the rubber chicken circuit, and even my mother looks at it and wonders what it is that I do. And I say, Mom, I go out and I just tell people stories about what went on in our store. I hope we got to just about all of you and left you a postcard. And yes, if you were in an earlier session, you're welcome to use the second postcard. My thing with this idea of the postcards is that I want to see people going home and doing something with it. It's one thing if you were looking to say, gee, the guy knows what he's talking about, or he's learned his lesson from having been in business. But none of this is of any value unless you can take something from here and take it home and actually do it and find that it makes your business better. Maybe it relieves you of some stress, you of some challenges or some duties that you've been doing that you could hand to somebody else. And quickly, the purpose of the postcard is if you address it to yourself, there's no side gimmick to it. It's not like, oh gosh, now he's got my name and address and I get junk mail from him. No, trust me. You look at how you write your name and address on there. You think I can read that stuff? Listen, I don't know how the mailman gets it to most people, but somehow or another it eventually gets there. Process of elimination. I send you back that postcard 2 weeks from today because what we have found is that it helps you to jumpstart and get into the flow of doing what you have learned this morning and utilizing one of these ideas to make your business just a little bit better. So, why in the world should we look at doing something with regards to educating our staff? Now, let me explain also. I use the word educate. Very big on the word educate, not into the concept of training people. The average merchant spends $65 to advertise for every dollar that they spend on training. Not good. $65 to get people in the door, $1 to train their employees. And my father says, why would you spend all that money to get people to come in and see what fools we are in here? Wouldn't it make more sense if you were to take and spend time and effort to have a staff that looked good, ran right, and people would then walk out and say, you ought to go back to Shay's place because, gee, they take very good care of their customers. Don't you think that would get us more benefit than a television, radio, or newspaper would get us? Good point. Number two, for businesses that will increase their education budget, 68% report a jump in profits and 44% will report a jump in productivity. 68 and 44. You, Antonio, get to remember those two numbers for me, okay? 68 and 44. For as we go down the pike, what we find a year later, 68 and 44 become 80 and 70. What does this say? You're not going to teach them one weekend. You're not going to say, I know, I'll have 1 or 2 staff meetings and they'll all understand it and they'll all retain it. Trust me, that's not going to work. It requires a commitment. Number 4, someone sent me an email about this recently. I was glad I was able to quote the statistics. 40 to 60% of the annual cost of an employee is what it takes to get the person up off the ground. 40 to 60% of a year's pay is what it takes you to get that person up off the ground and get them going towards being one of your good employees. Argument number 5, cost of getting a new customer is $20, cost of keeping a current one is $4. You put some numbnut out there to wait on a customer to answer the phone and they do a bad job of it, that $20 just was wasted. But the concept of keeping a good customer is minimal. And it all comes down to the people. If you listen to things such as Stephen Covey wrote in his book, what you do is you begin to build up personal credits with that person. Personal credits because of the way that you have taken care of them and they like you, they love you, and then something comes along and you make a screw up, and that's basically like a withdrawal from your personal account. They won't walk away and leave you forever from doing business with you because, well, they take good care of me, and sure, they're entitled to make a screw up every once in a while, and then you go back to building up more and more emotional points in that bank account with them. This is the way I want to run my business. Argument number 6. According to Harvard Business School, business that makes a commitment to quality customer service traditionally has experienced lesser employee turnover. Anybody had a problem with turnover at any time? You know, like someone left and then you wind up working the job for them. Not good. Argument number 7. You can do it one of several ways. Number 1, to solve this problem as compared to educating staff, we can go and hire them away from our competition. Now, I have seen people like that. I was here in Orlando last week for a show, and if I had a place here in Orlando, and I was a retailer, there's a guy over at the Gaylord who works in one of their restaurants. His name is Tony. He's from Manhattan. And I'd hire Tony away in a heartbeat. Matter of fact, I made a point that when I went to someone else's business, no matter what it was they sold, and I saw someone who was really sharp, I always gave him a business card. And I said, this is who I am and this is my business. Yeah, I don't know if you're out there looking, don't know if you are or are not happy with what you're doing, but if you ever think that you'd like to make a change, I would really be hopeful that you would hold on to my card and you would call me because I would like to talk to you. In the electronics field, for many years, Circuit City used to have people out on the streets, and that was their job, was to find these kind of people. And when they gave them the card, the message said, when you come in to apply for a job, do not go to, as you walk into employment office over this way, you simply say, I want to see the manager, because you have gone through all the necessaries. You passed the on-the-street test. You go see the manager, and we work out the details, and you're hired. We're not going to put you through all that, hoops and rings to jump through. Number 2 is you can, in trying to solve this problem, you can look at educating the staff that you have. Okay, hint to everyone in attendance, this is my favorite right here. Educate the staff that I got. Or number 3, you can do what we used to call the retailer's prayer, and that is you hire somebody new and you put your hands in and say, oh God, I hope this person works out. Is there anyone other than I who's had this prayer before and hope that it will be answered by the gods of retailing and that please would, and why would you think it's going to happen? If you've done it the same way over and over, it's like, oh, I rolled the dice and I hope I've got the right person. But you still got the problem person left inside. So, here's my first 7. The last part is to remember that when I sell something, everyone looks at the value. Is this worth it? Whatever the price is this worth it? Every time you sell a product or service, the customer is trying to decide, is it worth what you're asking? And notice that in the formula for value, that explaining the quality, providing service, giving information, those 3 can all be done by a well-educated staff person. And if I want value to be high, for me to let price to increase, I have to get the other 3 to also increase. And my staff can do more to make those increase for me than anything I could possibly do by myself. So that being said, here's what I want to tell you how we did it in our store. I'm going to tell you a sequence. I'm going to give you the details on it. Number 1, we had staff meetings. We call it the initial staff meeting, and it happened like this. My father and I used to drive to our store. It was about a 45-minute drive. I would go by my parents' house. I would pick up my dad. I had this neat little red sports car, and we would have a father-son, nice little meeting that went on for 45 minutes or so as we drove to the store, and we had these neat conversations. Here's what we need to do today. I would drive, he would write notes. I'm going to do this, you're going to do this, and it was great. It's a management meeting that should happen in all kinds of businesses. On the way home, somebody different got in my car. It was not that nice, neat, loving father. There was a monster who got in my car. And he would sit there in his seat, and he would pound on the dash. I've had it with these people. I am fed up with this crap. I am absolutely up to here with it. And a few other little expressions that he had. And his comment was, get these people together and fix this thing. Okay, now my thought was in fixing it was, if I didn't have the staff meetings, my little red car was going to take a beating and I was going to have the dash replaced. So, for the love of my little red sports car and my 45 minutes every afternoon, we began to have staff meetings. And I will tell you, our initial staff meetings were nothing more than scream and shout sessions. From there, after we got past scream and shout, we got into what we call our immediate needs. Getting policies and procedures established for our people. And you may say, my gosh, I'm a small business. We were too. But I'm going to show you how and why you need them. We then, from there, went on to knowledge sharing. We had times where all we did was practice selling something. We had times where all we did was sit and talk about products and the features and the benefits of a product. We then went to desired policies and procedures because we started seeing results and where could we get the place to go. And then we went to job specifications, which is how to do certain tasks. You know, you got two people and one can do it quick and easy and one's got this long difficult way and they can never seem to learn the lesson how the quick and easy goes. So we began to create job specifications. From there we worked on what we call job descriptions. The oddity here, my people wrote their own job descriptions. I am not politically correct, but I would have never would I hire a lawyer and let an employment lawyer write job descriptions or policies and procedures for me. I'll show you why in a couple of minutes. Then I created a chain of command. Who is running this place anyway? And then we started engaging other people as we saw results, started getting other people involved as I had a vision as to where it was going so that I could move on to something else, getting someone else engaged. And then we would refine this, we cleaned it up a little bit, and then we realized that we need to go and change our hiring process. That perhaps the problem started with the first person walking in the door wanting to get a job application. All right? So here's where it went. Initial staff meetings were 1 hour long. Our staff meetings were 1 hour. Why? Because it's just like this one. If I go longer than an hour, you're going to kind of wander and you want a break. A little hard to give your employees a break and then turn around and say, come back and let's go again. We held them every other week. Every other week got done enough. You do it once a month, I will tell you, if you made a list of all the problems that you saw with your business that could be solved by educating your staff, and if your list has 20 or 30 items on it and you're meeting once a month, realize that you have 20 or 30 months of work. Doesn't make sense. So at least if I go to bi-weekly, I now get them 26 times over the course of a year. We held them before or after hours. I like after hours. Okay? I can't do anything while I'm open. For one, I'm too small. Number two, somebody's got a problem. There's a phone ringing, somebody needs something. It was, you close the store. Ours were 8:15 on Thursday nights. Attendance was, this question, is attendance required? And I would tell my staff, no, your attendance at the meetings is optional. Really? Yeah, just like your employment tomorrow morning becomes optional. I paid you to be there, but you were there. This was just a part of your regular schedule. And as we told new people came in and applied for a job. This is a part of it. This is not an optional meeting for people. Another little quickie that I found, someone who added on to the format that I teach, was that they started having a little staff meeting every morning before they opened the doors. You ever go to a business, opens up 9 o'clock in the morning, and you're looking at the watch and it says 9 o'clock, and 9:04, and 9:05, and they're not open? Saw this in a store one day. People started tapping on the door. Nice little crowd, 6, 7 people outside, and the person walked up, unlocked the door, and says, we'll be open in a few minutes. Right now, the manager's having a customer service meeting. True story. But what if you had everybody there 15 minutes before you opened up? Okay, let's just make sure we're all on the same page today. Here's what we need to get done. This needs to get put up. Let's move this display over here. Hey, we got a ladies group playing through this afternoon. Let's make sure we take care of them, so on and so on. Oh, we're done at 10 minutes, so 5 minutes early, we open up the doors. You're in a strip store, you're on private course, semi-private, public, whatever it is. But to surprise people and say, come on in. Come on in now and do business with us. Our policies were, I wrote them in the form of letters. Little piece, just 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And I wrote them and simply said, okay, here's what you're going to wear. Here's what you're not going to wear. And one of the ways that I would explain it was to say, we have some neat customers. What would that customer feel comfortable if you were to walk in their home? Depending upon how you're dressed. Okay, now that's the level I want you dressed at least to the point that if that customer, no matter how well-to-do they are, that you walked in their home, they would feel very comfortable with you being there, as compared to you looking like someone who, looked like a slob and messy and, had all that stuff where your face looked like you'd fallen face first into a fishing tackle box, one of those type of people. What is it that looked professional? We also explained how we handled absences. For example, if you were going to be absent, let me ask this question. Anybody ever have someone call you one morning, you open up at 9 o'clock, someone calls you about 10 o'clock and says, hey boss, I'm not going to be there today? And at my place I'm thinking, I opened at 9, it's 10 o'clock. Do you think I am so stupid that I have been here for an hour and have not noticed you're missing? All right? And so I open at 9, I have what I want to do. I have a sales rep coming in at 10 o'clock. Now I got your job on top of that, and you call me up and say, boss, find a replacement to cover the rest of my day for me? And ours was, nope, sorry, I won't do it. Everyone who worked at my place had everyone else's phone number. We had some part-timers. We had a couple of people who had retired and said, I'll fill in for somebody every once in a while. And we said, find your own replacement, because I'm busy doing what I'm supposed to do, one of which may be covering it. So when you think you're sick at 7 o'clock in the morning, call and get your own replacement. All right, now someone here is thinking this. I can sense it. You ready? Someone's saying, is that legal? Okay, here's the answer. I don't know. I bet not. I bet that's not legal to do that. But I also know that I run a small business, and I got to do what I have to do to make my business go. I can't sit there and run all this stuff in front of could you imagine to get an opinion on that, what it would cost me to go get an employment lawyer to give me just an opinion on that? I can't see that working in small business. Our procedures, how to do something. How do you do things? How about this one? Anybody here ever have a customer come in and say, I was in here like 3 weeks ago and I saw Sam, and Sam was going to special order this club for me and said it'd be here in about 2 to 3 weeks. Is it here yet? And is there anyone here, quick show of hands, that you have gone around and you cannot find the paperwork anywhere that we ever ordered the club for the person? Anybody been down that pike? Yeah. All right, so we had a procedure. How do you do this? When what is the actual piece of paper? We just go to the office supply store and we had this little pre-printed form that we picked up from them. And we had a little rubber stamp made that said special order. We just stamped it on all the pages. And it said, fill this out. And here's where you put it. And in one of our classes, as we created this procedure, I wrote out a sample. Here's what the special order should look like. I duplicated it and I handed everyone in my meeting, here, this is what the form looks like when it's filled out. And then, to make it look, kind of official, they had a copy of this procedure letter, and they signed it, and I put it in their employment file. Just saying, this is now we're real legal-like, supposedly. And I put all of the policy and procedure letters in a little notebook, one of those little 39-cent notebooks, and hung it up near the time clock. Because I know you're not going to remember all this, and you go, well, how do I write this special order? Seems like I'm forgetting something. Well, just look it up here in the notebook right quick. There's a sample as to how I want it to be done. Here's where it's supposed to go. So you've always got a reference book to fall back on. But we didn't build it like here's this big book. It was just the policy and procedure notebook had one item in it. And then it had 2, and then it had 3, and then it had 4. It just slowly but surely grew as we decided to address different issues. Then we got into our knowledge sharing. We talked about what do we advertise. My father required that we had a staff meeting before every ad came out. Again, I explained, he had no sense telling the world we're a bunch of numbnuts around here. And people walk in and say, I saw your ad in the paper, where's this item? And the person says, what paper? I don't read the paper. I got up late this morning, and that type of stuff. I mean, I've seen that. I've walked into stores in the mall. I can remember one of the companies that at one point had a full-page color ad in USA Today. And when I walked into their store, no one in the store knew that they had it. How much do you think it cost for a full-color, full run of all editions USA Today, full-page ad? How much money do you think that cost? And I walk into the store at the moment of truth trying to buy something, and there was no one in the store who could tell me about it. We talked about products. We talked about all the aspects of the product. We talked about how to understand that there are features to products, and features mean nothing, but benefits mean everything. How to translate the feature of a product into a benefit for the customer. We practice how to sell things. I mean, for example, if I'm selling these palms, and Tim is looking at one, he's thinking about buying it, we practice doing things like, Tim, why don't you take a look at that one? I think that may be what you're looking for. We practice saying something like that so that Tim would touch the product. And notice as soon as he touched it, I take my hand off of it. Because Tim is about 14% more likely to buy it, according to research, if he's touching the item. 14% more likely to buy the item if I gave him to touch it. And in this one, so he says, yep, that's what I want, I take it. Is 1 enough, or would 2 be better? Why would he buy 2 pocket PCs or whatever? Maybe he's buying one for himself and his wife. Never limit myself to the possibility of 1 sale. 1 enough, 2 be better. Oh, well, can I sync this one? If my wife has one, will they sync? They sure will. I'll take 2 of them. Why limit yourself to only 1 sale? It's like walking into a restaurant. You ever go into a restaurant, sit down and eat, and the waitress come by and lay the bill down on the table? What does it say? Bye. It says bye. Goodbye. You're gone. You're done. You're through. Did they ask you if you wanted dessert? No? What if you wanted dessert? Are you likely to ask for dessert at this point? You ever seen anybody, wait a minute, don't put that down yet. I may still want more. No, you accept that as that's their signature goodbye. There's the bill in there. They go into the black hole. You never see them again. And I explain that to our people. I say, you never give up with a customer. When the customer says, that's it, I'm through buying, then okay, then we'll ring it up, and hopefully they see more stuff when they get to the checkout. People don't just know that stuff. They have to be taught these type of things. Desired policies and procedures. Well, where would you like to go? How about this one? You ever get ready to pay an invoice, and you're looking around the office, and you cannot find the packing slip for the item, and you got like 2 dozen of them in according to the invoice, and you go walking out on the floor, and you see about 12, 15, 16 of it, and you figure, okay, we must have really got all 24, so you go ahead and pay the invoice. Anybody ever done that, paid an invoice just because you can't find support, but it looks like it got there? All right, see, what we did was we had a procedure that said when something comes in, whether it comes in the mail or whether it takes and comes in by UPS or a freight line, that everything got written down in this little notebook. Here's the date, here's who it's from, here's how it got here, here's how many boxes, and what date, and who was the person who processed it. And when it came in, as there would be a packing slip on the outside of the box, you always cut it off, and this is where it always went to. And then how you attached it to the purchase order. Did it solve every issue? No. Did it get rid of a lot of problems? Yes, it got rid of the majority of them. That's only one example. How many other situations do you have where it's like, this is what I would like my people to do? Well, you can't do it initially, but it's where you would like to get them to. And then we got job specifications. How do you do something? All right, things like how is a salesperson supposed to act? Someone who works in the warehouse, how are they supposed to do something? How's the cashier, the one who's working the cash register, how are they supposed to do things? we were, and I don't see this as being just overly detailed, let's just say we saw potential for problems and solved it. You ever watch people when they hand you change struggle at the cash register, and they hand you a piece of paper and a wad of money, and so you want to stand there and count it to make sure they got it right? All right, for example, one of the things that we did in our point of sale system was we disabled the amount tendered button. Most point of sales have a little on-off switch, and we just took off. And someone says, well, how do they know how to make change? And I go, if they don't know how to make change, they're not working in my store. They got to know how to count money. And they were told that when the person went to pay for something, they'd tell them, well, this is $14.79. And you'd say, out of a $20 bill. And you would take the $20 bill and you laid it crosswise over the drawer. And you would count out the money to yourself and you'd say, $14.79, 80, 90, $15, and 5 makes 20. And you stood there. And then when the customer put away their money, then you could put the $20 bill away. And every bill was always laid in the drawer facing the same way. It made us slow down and keep track of things. He says, wait a minute, I gave you a 50. No, sir, you gave me a $20 bill. Did I have problems with short change artists? No. We were just that detailed about things. Everyone had specifications to how to handle certain tasks. Then job descriptions. We covered how do you work with a customer, how do you work with each other, how do you learn to communicate. As you did things like this, our people wrote their own. They wrote their own job descriptions. Mark, you were a salesperson. What I want from you is 5, 6, 7 sentences in the order of importance. As a salesperson on the floor of my golf club, what do you do? Okay. When I see in my store, number one, the very first sentence out of your notation said better be, take care of the customer. And if you have people who work for you, and you say, that's my worst salesperson, I can figure that out, because what I would do is I'll ask all of your people who work for you to write down their list of sentences, and I'll ask you to write it down. And the employee whose list of sentences is in the same sequence as yours is most definitely your best employee, because it shows you're thinking alike. The person whose sequence is all different, like waiting on the employee is in sentence number 6, and you think it's number 1, then as I sit down my staff meeting and say, okay, let's all get together and let's get the sequence together. What do you think is the most important? And someone who's the good salesperson is going to say, well, I would think the most important thing in our store is taking care of the customer. Okay, well, let's talk about it. You're putting merchandise on a shelf and you got a lot to do and the customer walks in the door. Do you think the customer's going to wait? Probably not. Do you think the merchandise will wait? Yeah, it'll sit there. It's not going anywhere. Okay, then waiting on the customer should be before stocking the shelves. All right, so let's put stocking the shelves somewhere down the list. And if we spent an entire hour and all we did was get the list of sentences correct, you understand how I, as an owner of the business, want my people to think. I want you to understand that every person walking in the door is the most important thing to happen to you today. Take care of that person. I'm not saying pounce on them. I just simply say recognize that they're here. Stocking the shelves can come later. Then we looked at our chain of command, and ours chain of command looked a little different. And this was posted. Matter of fact, we even posted in our store, we had an 8 by 10 color picture of everyone in the store, framed it, hung it on a wall, and we got a little cutesy with it. We had an extra 8 by 10, and underneath it said the boss. And if you walked over and looked at it, it was a mirror. You go, oh, that's kind of cute. And I go, well, this is how we feel in the store. You're the customer. You're the most important thing in our store. But people would say, how come if you own the store, you're on the bottom of the list? And I would say, well, let's look at it this way. Here we are on a Thursday. I open the store is opened, right? I mean, you hope it's open. You're here. You're not there. And I would say, did they sell merchandise? Yes. Did we make money on it? Yes. Okay. Now, let's look at it a different way. I'm here. We open the store. No customers walk in the door. Did we make any money? No, we didn't. All right, so now, real sharp one, folks who work for me, then what's important here? Me or the customers? Well, then it's got to be the customers. Okay, well, then that must be the chain of command. That must be what's most important here. And then past that point, the second most important person has got to be the one that talks to customers. And all the way down to where I am the least important thing. To saying to my people, look, I may be telling you something that I think is very important. I catch you, cruising across the store, you run into the warehouse, and I say, hey, I need to talk to you about this. But if you stop and say, I'm getting something for a customer right now, trust me that I will understand that as my signal to shut up and wait. Because I am not that important. You're getting something for a customer, and that is far more important than anything I have to say to you. And you simply telling me that you're waiting on a customer is fine, because I will back off at that point. And then we involved others. We created a mentoring system, who's been around for a while, who's very good, and let that person do their thing. We allowed other people to coach and teach. It was a little tough because I had people who I thought were very good at teaching, but they used to like to say, well, here's the reason why we're going to cover this topic tonight, because we're doing a really crappy job of this block. And no. This is not a beat-up session. This is a chance for us to get better, and this is the way I want it presented. I want it in a positive, I want it in an upbeat manner. We have an opportunity to sell more of this product because we can get better at it. And tonight we're going to practice getting better. And that's all we're going to do tonight, is just practice getting better. We developed a supervisor system. And why? It's simply because you gave them a key to open up the door, let people call the shots. We went so far that to counter things that I see with people are situations where Bill may own the pro shop, and Tim, he may say, well, Tim's my manager for me. And Mark walks up with some kind of problem, and he goes right to Bill with the problem. I go, well, what's Tim doing? Well, I'm here, so I'm solving the problem. Well, do you pay him full-time to be the manager of your shop? And I go, yes, I do. Well, then how come you're letting him do part-time work? You go, oh, I never thought of it that way. I said, well, that's how my father taught me to look at it. If I'm paying him full-time to be a manager, then every time he's here, he needs to manage the shop. Because I have owner jobs that I need to go do. And I need to go take care of owner stuff and let managers take care of manager stuff. And I don't need him gone around. And as an owner, that's kind of hard to do. That's kind of tough to willingly sit back and say, that's what I hire him to do. Because when you're gone, he's going to call the shots. Why not let him call the shots? Well, he might make a mistake. Oh, like you're not going to? No, he may make a mistake you just haven't seen yet. And the only reason you haven't seen it is because he's made it while you're gone. Now, if he makes a mistake while you're here, in private, you have the opportunity to say, can we talk about that? Can we rearrange this a little bit? This is the way I think I'd really see this play out the next time it happens. And then we started refining. Now, I would tell you overall, this whole thing took us about 2 years to make this thing work right. I think you could kind of shorten it down, having the fact that you weren't there with Dad and I and didn't have to go through all this. I think you could actually shorten this sequence down. I will tell you part of the shortening was learning that every 6 months to take each individual one at a time and review their job with them. And the way that we reviewed their job worked something like this. Hand them back their job description. However many sentences that Mark and I have just written. On a scale of 1 to 10, rate each one of the sentences. How you doing? You rate it, I'll rate it. Then we'll swap pieces of paper. I find that works better than compared to the situation where I sit down and say, okay, now I need to talk to you about your sales. Oh, no, you're not going to hit on me about that again, are you? And then all of a sudden you get into the defensive mode. If I say, you rate yourself and tell me how you think you're doing, and then I rate you, and we'll swap the papers and we'll look at it, and then we'll see if we can come to some sort of an agreement as to what we think the score really is. Then we will know together what kind of progress we need to make. And then I set goals and deadlines. So here we are at January. Let's talk about where we're going to be in 6 months. Does this eat up some of your day? Yes, it takes about an hour to do this with each individual. But I will tell you again from personal experience, it sure beats my walking around and whining about it for the next 6 months about how unhappy I am with somebody. It takes the investment of the hour now to get them on the right track. And you also find some interesting situations. I had a person, his name was Roy. I would say, okay, Roy, here's where we're at, here's where we see it. Now, in 6 months, we got another review, and of course, you're going to expect a pay raise at that point. Here's what I expect to see happen in the next 6 months. And Roy's like, whoa, wait a minute. You can't put that kind of pressure on me. You can't put those. And I said, well, wait here, friend. You're expecting a raise in 6 months. I got to expect something out of the 6 months. If you expect to see a raise coming, then this is what you got to do to earn it. 3 weeks, Roy came in and said, this is my 2 weeks notice. He says, I just can't handle the pressure of this anymore. Oh, you mean you can't handle the pressure of having expectations that you work well? I don't think I want you in here anyway. And then I looked to change the hiring process. Okay, this is where I realized it all came in. Number one, in learning to change the hiring process, I got to tell you that one of the things that we found out is when we put out the ad. The ad on the Help Wanted needed to start out not with who we were, but what did the person do? What do you want the person? And I don't know why this thing works, but it just does. The first part of the copy needs to say, here's what I want the person to do. We took our 6-sentence job descriptions and attached it to the job application. Changed the job application from the one that we so often see at the office supply store. You know, one's got the little 2 holes punched at the top and you fill out the front and the back and all that rigmarole, to where it asked questions. Questions like, why did you apply here? And a big space to fill in the blank, okay? I mean, this job application could go on 6, 8 pages. I don't want to say, why did you apply here, and give them a square this big. I want to hear. Tell me about where you worked last. What do you feel were your best contributions to where you worked last? You could ask questions like, if I were to call your boss from your last job, not that I can legally, but if I were to call your boss from your last job, what do you think he would tell me were your greatest contributions to that place? What do you see yourself doing 6 months from now? What do you see as your shortcomings? And all of a sudden, you look at that job description attached there, and you look at my job application and go, this does not run like any other shop I've worked in before. And that's the point I want you to see right off the bat. No, I don't. I don't run my shop like anybody else. I run it very differently. And I will tell you that we had people walk in the door and look at this multi-page thing, and we'd set them down in the little corner where they'd fill it out, and come back 20 minutes later and say, where was the person who was filling out the application? I don't know. He left. She left. Okay, did I not just save several hours by scaring them off at that point? Did you want that employee anyway? You're going to find out 6 months from now. I found out 20 minutes, and all I had to do was put a piece of paper in front of them, and when I pick it back up, I can use it for the next person. I don't want to find out 6 months later. The interviewers. We'll tell you real quickly how we changed our interviewers. I was doing it. I hired somebody. 2 people. One's name was Bob, one's name was Rock. Came up to me and they said, where'd you find this new guy? Pretty good, huh? I go, this one is worse than the last one. I go, what do you mean? He's only been here like 3 days. How do you know that he's worse than the last one? They would say, would you like a list alphabetically or would you like it numerically? And then I said, well, you think you could do any better? And the response was, well, we sure couldn't do any worse. All right, see the battle going on here with us? I said, okay, smart guys, you think you're so hot? You do it. I'm not going to hire him anymore. You do the hiring. I'm here to tell you that as much as I was a smart mouth about it, that was one of the most intelligent things I ever did. I quit hiring people. Person would walk in the door, and they'd say, I need to see someone about a job. And I'd say, oh, well, you go see the kid over there. He wants to talk to you. And they'd go over and they'd sit down and start talking to him and go, you're awful young to own this place. Oh, I don't own it. I just work here. Well, who owns it? The guy you were talking to. He owns it. Well, then how come you're doing the interviews? It's very simple, because I'm the one who has to put up with you. See, I don't like slackers. And I don't like people with bad attitudes. And I'm going to hire somebody that likes to work with other people. I'm going to hire someone who works the way I do, because Tom has already identified me as being one of his best salespeople. You notice what happens here is that the best hire people who work like they do. I, on the other hand, am desperate. Someone has left. They gave me their 2 weeks' notice. In the 2 weeks, I cannot find anybody. We have now gone 2 or 3 weeks. Who do you think is working the extra hours because of the missed person? Right? I am desperate to the point that I'm ready to do mirror employment. I don't know if you're familiar with the phrase mirror employment, but mirror employment works like this. You walk in the door, say, I'm here to apply for a job. I take a mirror. I put it right here underneath your nose. If it fogs within 30 seconds, it means you're alive and you're hired. Okay, that's mirror employment. And some of us do that because what happens is we are desperate to get somebody in here, and when we get desperate, then someone like Bob or Rock says, where did you get this person? And it's like, didn't we just go through this whole cycle already? All we're doing is just buying ourselves another 6 months. This doesn't make sense. So they did the interviewing. And they would ask questions. So what would your last employer say? Now here in the States, I can't call the last employer and ask them to tell me about you. They can basically confirm that you worked here from this date to this date and that you were an employee there. Do they sometimes leak other information? Absolutely. But that's about all I can really ask. But when I asked the person, or when Bob and Rock asked the person, so what would your last employer say about you? Had a man by the name of Doug come to our shop, came from New England. And he says, well, why don't you ask him yourself? Here is his home number and here is his cell phone number, and he would be glad to talk to you. And so they called. And when they called, the guy says, oh, so you're the lucky one. What do you mean the lucky one? You're the one who's going to get to hire Doug? He says, well, we haven't. He says, trust me, you will. He says, Doug was phenomenal. Doug just had some personal challenges with a marriage that went bad, and he just needed some space in someplace different, and he came to Florida. So what did he tell me? He says, if Doug would come home, I'd take him in a heartbeat. Oh, okay. Doug was hired. Now, on the other hand, Bill, if I were to call your last employer, what would he say about you? Oh, don't call him. All right, we're talking red flags. Red flags. Thank you for your time. Enjoyed the visit. We'll be in touch if we're interested. See the difference in the scenario? A couple of bonuses. How about a bonus that you assign someone to be the mentor? If I hire Bill, I give Max a bonus for being his mentor. Okay? How about a bonus that says, Max, you get Bill as an employee up through his 6-month mark, because by 6 months, if they're going to leave you, that's where it's going to happen, somewhere in the first 6 months. You get Bill up to the point where he passes his job review at 6 months with a 85% grade or higher. I'll give you 3 days off with pay. You interested? Do I have Max's attention at that point? 4 months down the line, Bill says, I don't know about this job. I'm not so sure this is what I want to do. Do you know that Max has that boy in the corner? Hey, wait a minute. I got too much time in you, buddy. You are not quitting on me. Look, this is a neat place. I've been here 14 years. You are not quitting on me. Now, come on, stick it out here. It's a fellow employee saying this is a good place to be here. Who do you think he's going to listen to, me or Max? Max works with him. Do you think that I've seen people make it a week. I'll give you a week paid vacation. You go, a week? I can't afford to give someone a week's pay. Okay, so what was it we just said? 40 to 60% of a year's salary is what it costs to get someone up to speed. 40 to 60%. So we're talking 26 weeks of pay to get him up to speed. I offered Max 5 days to get him up to speed for me. I mean, this is not hard mathematics here. 5 days, 26 weeks, and then he's gone. I like this way of giving Max it. The other bonus, when you have this staff meeting, the feeling that you have afterwards, my staff meetings were 1 hour. They were over at 9:15. And 1 or 2 people, because their spouses would pick them up, would leave it right at 9:15. And there'd be 1 or 2 who'd hang on and say, wait, I want to ask some more about this. Let's talk about this a little further. And then they'd go home 9:45. And then, guys, we got to get this place closed up. So well, here, I'll pitch in. We'd close up the store. And then we'd walk outside as we could here in Florida. And we'd walk out to where our cars were. There were many a night at 11 o'clock, we were still sitting out in the parking lot, just sitting on the front or back end of somebody's car, just having a discussion. And there was some employee that we're thinking, kind of marginal. But in tonight's lesson, they sat there and they asked questions. I've had a hard time. I don't understand this. Can you tell me how to do this again? And you look and go, dadgum, the kid's paying attention. my gosh, we're making some progress. We found something that lights him up. Oh, okay. Perhaps it's just he's not comfortable with the product knowledge yet. We just got to boost him a little further, and maybe we found a keeper at this point. So what do we do with it? Number one, we had the pictures of everyone who worked in our store, 8 by 10 color photos. We stole this idea from a grocery store because they put the manager up in the front. And we thought, well, the grocery store puts the manager. Why can't we put everybody? It's just not that hard to get an 8 by 10 color photo. I mean, that was back in the days where we got it and had to send it off to someone to enlarge it up to that size. But every person had their picture blown up, nice little piece of brass that had their name on it. It was framed, and everyone was there on the wall. Now, if you walked in and looked at my shop and saw everyone's name in brass and their picture framed, do you think I have high employee turnover? And you as a customer would say, no, I don't. I bet your employees stay forever. And you don't know the answer or not. But it looks like they're there for a long time. It looks sharp. And when other people come in to apply, it's like, ooh, this looks kind of like the place where you come in and you apply. It's like you just never leave. It's like, this must be a neat place to come to work. This just has the kind of feel of stability to it. I've seen people put pictures of their staff in their advertising. And you could say something like, we only have one pro here, but everyone that works here is a professional. There's only one pro at our shop, but everyone else is professional. Here's who they are. Here's their names. Here's how long they've been in the industry. We used to do an item where we had a newsletter that we sent to all of our customers. And every month, once you opened up the cover, there was an article about one of our employees. Fairly lengthy story that told you all about him. Perhaps one of the neatest ones that we had occurred with this situation. A man walked in the store one day and he says, there's a guy here, works at your place. His name is Frank. And I knew this customer, I can't remember his name right now, but I remember this customer. I go, yeah, he's my dad. He goes, really? He says, you wrote this story about your dad, and in it, you explained that your dad went to Grover Cleveland High in St. Louis and graduated in the class of 1944. And I said, yes, my dad, Grover Cleveland High, the Cleveland Commandos, and he was in the ROTC and all this other stuff. And he says, is your dad working today? I said, yeah, he's sitting in the back in his office. He says, I'd like to meet him. So, okay, and I went back and said, Dad, there's a customer out here. I said, we wrote the article about you last month, and this guy wants to meet you. So I walked my dad out, and I says, Dad, this is, whatever his name was, and here they are. The guy says, you went to Grover Cleveland High, class of 44? And my dad says, yes, I sure did. And he says, you were one of the Cleveland Commandos? He says, yeah, I sure was. He says, well, my name is Sam Smith, Grover Cleveland High, class of 43. How are you? See the bonding that we create with customers at that point? See the type of feeling that my customers have? Is that a fluke? Yeah. But do strange things like that happen? Absolutely, every day. But it's the type of creation that we have built, simply starting with my father getting in the car with me one day and beating his fist on the dash and saying, this crap has got to go. We can't go through this anymore. This has just got to stop. And from a lesson of simply wanting to preserve my car and calm my father down, we built a team that was phenomenal. Even in the 1980s, when here in Florida, you could not get anyone to apply. I mean, there was such a shortage of employees. I had a waiting list of people who wanted to come to work at our place. I had a waiting list. I had a man, his name was Gene Hill, who walked in one day and he says, I understand it's kind of hard to get a job at this place. And I said, well, it's kind of rigorous. And he said, I understand that you also welcome retirees. And I said, yeah, you guys are great. You have a lot of product knowledge, and people will listen to you. They look upon you as being the voice of experience as compared to me putting some 18, 19-year-old out there on the floor. So yes, I have a preference for getting retirees to work here. And he says, well, this is what I do right now. This is where I work. And I'm retiring in 2 years. And what I'd like to do is, if it's all right with you, he says, I'd like to get my job application in now. Thinking if there's a wait to get to work here, I think I'm being smart and getting ahead of the curve. And I'm applying for a job that I could fulfill in 2 years from now. And the 2 years came and they went, and we hired Gene. And Gene was, he stuttered all the time. And people were very patient with Gene. Even though he would stutter with things, they were very patient because they knew he had a wealth of knowledge. 3 years later, Gene became very sick. They determined he had brain cancer. Surgery, the whole 9 yards. And over a period of several years, he's going through all kinds of therapy. And every once in a while, we would get a visit from Gene's wife. And we would, how's Gene doing? He's getting better, but Gene's got a question. Gene wants to know, can he come back? Well, absolutely. I mean, when Gene's ready, tell him the job is here. It's waiting for him. Of course, we'd already hired someone else. You tell Gene that his job is here waiting for him. And Gene came back. He made it. And his wife says, one of the reasons Gene, I think, made it through all the chemo and the stuff was because he wanted to come back and be with the customers who were his friends, the other employees who were his close friends, that this drove him to get to the point where he could work again. And she says, I thank you because you have extended his life by a number of years. 4 closing points. On the back of the presentation notes, there is an article that deals with this topic. I would invite you to read that, enjoy that, take that home. If you use that perhaps as a guide on hiring well for your business. Page just before that contains an order form. There is a special I have offered to you because I'm here, so I'm not at a booth in the show. But if you use that order form and take one of our books home with you, as compared to ordering our website, there'll be 2 things. Number 1, you can get right to work on it. Secondly, you will save the postage and you will save 20%, because if you say, oh, I'll order the books when I get back home next week, we'll welcome the order off the website, but they're going to charge you 20% higher prices for everything as well. I do this because it causes you to get right to work. Also, then you have to stop and visit with me. Number 3, if you want me to send you your postcards, if you will just drop them off up here, I will gladly take them. And the last one. So we've sat together today. You've looked at these ideas. And my sense is somebody's walking out of here saying, I don't think this will work. I really am not so sure about his ideas. So I share with you one more poster. They're right here. If you would like to have one, come pick one up. And it's simply this one. It's the definition of the word insanity. And that is, insanity is using the same method to do a task over and over, but expecting different results. So you've been around for 5, 6, 10 years, and you're hiring the same way, and you're getting the same results. Your insanity is continuing to do it the same way and wondering, is it ever going to change? The answer is no, it's not going to change. I invite you to try something a little different. Thank you for coming this morning. I hope to see you back again this afternoon for another session.